Greetings, saber fans. It's your old pal Megtooth Sith, and I have another Graflex project here to show you. It's been Graflex building month. This is a Graflex 2.5, one of the last of the V8 Interceptas. These hilts are no longer made, at least not where most of us can get hold of them. But this is a Graflex 2.5. I've done some extra special modifications to this saber to make it a little bit more accurate. Number one, I've added the mylar tape on the clamp, just like the ESB prop has the mylar tape on the clamp. This has a Sloth Furnace ESB Clampcard with silver solder traces. This has both the red buttons, which both of these are false. Your bottom red button is your blade retention, so you just loosen the bottom button and that's how you get your blades or your blade plug in and out. Have the Graflex tabs added here and here on your Graflex pins. I've added slotted screws here as well as in the clamp here. I have secured the grips on with black Phillips head screws. And in addition, this saber also has the KR Pommel Coin on the rear of the saber with the New York patent showing, much like in the Hoth cave. I did that as accurately as I could. Now, I did leave the beer tab on this saber, and the ESB saber is typically not supposed to have this beer tab. But on a Graflex 2.5, if you remove the beer tab, there's a pretty large hole here. If you do decide to remove it, it's pretty easy. You can just remove this thumb screw lefty-loosey and then remove this rivet, and you'll have a fairly large hole underneath here, and you'll actually get shine through that hole. Some people like that, some people don't. I leave the beer tab on there. If the end user wants to remove the beer tab, they can. Here's the advantage of retaining the beer tab, because along with this red button, which is blade retention, I'm also going to send the glass eye that comes with these kits, and I've milled this glass eye down to brass, so it is a brass eye. I've also adjusted and turned down these threads so that this works for blade retention as well. And what you can do is you can swap out your second red button for your brass eye, just like this. And then your ESB saber is now a quasi Force Awakens Graflex. And I have included a Force Awakens font on this saber as well. So you actually have quasi TFA and quasi ESB all in one saber. Some of the accuracy nuts won't like that, but I think it's good enough to pass for both. Again, if you want to remove the beer tab, you can, but I would personally leave it on there. And I'm including this brass eye along with the saber. This saber does not have switches in either of the red buttons. The switches for this saber are both located in the clamp card. The forwardmost switch on this part of the clamp, you would touch this part of the clamp, would be power, and the rear part of the clamp would be auxiliary. We'll show you those in a second. Let's crack open this saber and show you the insides. So to open the saber, I'm going to open the clamp. Never turn this clamp. Always leave it how I've adjusted it. If you tighten this clamp or loosen this clamp, you'll affect the operation of the clamp switches in the clamp card. So please, the only thing you should do with this clamp is to open it so that you can remove the back of the hilt. When you remove the back of the hilt, we're going to expose the Goth3D chassis within the hilt. This is the Goth3D chassis that I have used in this hilt. It is equipped with a 3D printed crystal. It is custom painted to try and make it appear to be metal, even though it's plastic. These chassis are all plastic, sans the support rods here and here. Now these support rods, there's supposed to be two more up top. I've left those out because it permits greater viewing of the crystal chamber. Please never use this saber without the bottom attached. You should not wield this saber holding on to the chassis. You should never play around or wield this saber with the blade in it, with the rear of the hilt exposed. This is generally for display only. Now, let's show you what it can do. So I woke it up. Now I'm going to retract it. So number one, you have Neopixel effects here and here in the bottom, as well as you have a pulsing crystal chamber that pulses on and off when the blade's in idle. When you ignite the saber, the crystal stays illuminated and mirrors blade effects. So this is a Cylon type effect that I have going here in the first font. In the next font, oop, that's volume.
Graflex TFA HD.
Graflex TFA HD with a solid blue, still got a Cylon.
Did you come back to say you forgive me?
Cross guard
To save my soul?
with a pulsing red fire blade.
Be careful not
Vader.
to choke on your aspirations.
Pulsing red with a blue Cylon. Now when you ignite this saber, even though the Cylon is blue, that effect will turn red. And I believe this one mirrors the blade. It does. And then when we retract the saber, it'll go back to that Cylon blue, which is pretty cool.
Luke Skywalker.
Now, this is Luke Skywalker from KSith, and this is actually a cycle. It'll cycle from white to green. And it actually changes colors as it cycles. But when it cycles up, it should be green, which it is. You can see it green, bottom and top. I believe it blade matches. No, it doesn't blade match.
Get him now.
This is Senate Majority, and it has a gold Cylon going. When you ignite the saber, blue that stays gold, which is pretty cool. Just a different accent.
For your own good, stay out of this affair.
This is Mace Windu. I'm not going to ignite it because there's profanity, but it's a blue cycle that cycles to purple.
Hello there.
This is your rainbow blade. When you ignite it, the whole thing is rainbow. There's no off behavior, so the crystal's not pulsing in this preset, nor do you have any cycling going on. But once you ignite the saber, you can see you have rainbow going on in the rear accents, but you also have rainbow occurring in the crystal chamber. And the next preset is a Christmas blade, where you have a green crystal chamber, red accents, and what's happening in the blade, which you'll see in the demo, is actually a candy cane blade, a red and white striped blade. You'll see more about that in the demo. Also, you can see it's back with a Graflex illuminated blade plug from the custom saber shop. Next preset is your battery blade. Now the whole saber, the accents, the crystal chamber, as well as the blade, all give you the battery meter color and pulse. And we'll talk about another way you can figure out voltage on the saber. While we have the rear of the saber open, it's important to show you that this is your kill key. You can turn the saber off by turning the kill key off there. When you turn it on, it will boot in the same preset, which should be the battery blade. And it does. It booted up in the battery blade. But if we advance to the next preset,
The Force is with you, young
which is
Skywalker.
ESB,
But you are not a Jedi yet.
and I turn the saber off, when I turn it back on, it should boot in ESB. So it always remembers the last preset you were on when you turn it off. So now it boots in ESB. On this saber, this is equipped with a Proffie 1.5. The access to your SD card is here, USB port is there. To recharge this saber, you simply bring in your charge cord, remove the kill key, and you plug in your charge port into the saber, and you'll see the saber turn off as it should. Then plug your charger into the wall. when the charger is red, it is charging. When the charger turns green, that means your battery is fully charged. I will be shipping a charger with this saber, and this is indeed the charger you're going to get. The important thing to remember about this charger is plug it into the saber, then plug it into the wall. When your saber is done charging, unplug it from the wall, then unplug it from the saber. It's important that you take those charging steps in that precise order, and I will be shipping this saber, including this charger, as well as the 7/8" blade that I built for this lightsaber. So now I'm going to remove this charge cord. I'm going to put our twisting kill key back in and turn the saber back on. It should boot in ESB. And it does. So that's all to show you on the chassis. Now, typical ways that people can display these crystal reveal sabers is you can put it in your stand like this. You can also display it like this. You can even close the clamp while the saber is open. You can also display it exposing the full chassis like that, and you can leave your bottom beside it. So there's tons of ways to display this in a saber stand. This saber stand is not included with this sale. If you want a saber stand, you're going to have to purchase one on your own. One cautionary note is that when the bottom of the hilt is off, let me get this out of the way. The clamp switches that this saber is equipped with are right here underneath the clamp card. When the back switch, when you have the bottom of the hilt off, the general support structure for this clamp switch holder is no longer holding that clamp switch holder up. So when you sometimes depress that clamp switch, I don't know if it's going to show on video, but the bottom of the clamp switch holder actually goes down and touches the chassis. So you have to remember the bottom of the hilt is actually what gives this particular switch its support. So in order to operate this switch when you have the rear of the hilt off, if you're wanting to show the chassis capabilities off, you're going to have to slide the clamp card forward to expose the actual switch so you can press it. The front switch still works, but the rear switch you have to operate by touching the switch directly when the rear of the hilt is off. I'm going to cycle it back to ESB.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
And we're going to put the hilt back together. So the first thing you want to do is you slide the hilt back on, and then what you want to do is, because remember, if you press this button, this clamp switch holder may be down, so it's important if the hilt ever stops here that you recognize that you might have to lift that clamp switch holder ever so slightly to get the hilt to clear it. Once the hilt clears it, you can slide the clamp card back and then gently push forward on the saber until it engages the threads. Then righty-tighty, very slowly, very easily. If something doesn't feel smooth and it doesn't feel like it's going easily, please stop. If you cross-thread this saber, if you don't have it aligned properly when you start righty-tighty turning this thing to put the hilt back together, you could cross-thread these aluminum threads, and if you do that, you will absolutely ruin this hilt. Once the bottom of the saber is on, you'll know it's proper because the clamp, the actual Kobold DRing should be opposite the clamp. So this edge of the D-ring should be aligned with this grip, and this grip should be perfectly aligned with your clamp, and the D-ring should now be opposite of the clamp. Now that's not all the way tight. All the way tight is here, but then when you do that, the D-ring is not aligned properly. So you have to back it off a couple of turns and then tighten the clamp. And then that is how you reassemble the saber. That is the general layout and general capabilities of this saber. If y'all will stick tight, we'll do a demonstration video where we actually demonstrate this saber's capabilities and functions for you out in my garage. And then when we're finished with that, we'll show you how to operate this sucker. Stand by for the demo video. Roll that beautiful bean. Hey everybody, welcome back from the explanation video where I showed all the details on this Luke Skywalker ESB Graflex saber, the same saber that Darth Vader cut off Luke Skywalker's hand as he was holding it, and later popped up in The Force Awakens. Let's demonstrate this saber. So number one, I'm going to show you briefly all the fonts. I'm only going to show all the blade effects on the first blade because I think any more than that's going to be a waste. So on the first sound font, which is going to be Kyberphonics ESB, I'll demonstrate all the possibilities and effects on each blade style, and then we'll move on from there. So hopefully you all like this. It's a pretty awesome saber. The first font on this saber is ESB Graflex. Here's the font sound.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. You are not a Jedi yet.
This saber does have gesture ignition and gesture retraction. So let's ignite the saber with a stab, and then we'll show you lockup. It has localized lockup, which is also active in that it depends on where the saber blade is at as to where it goes. In addition to localized lockup, it has force lightning lockup. That shows up better on a red blade on the video. The blue blades blow out the video. Then we have tip drag, where only the tip of the saber changes colors. And then we have stab. In addition to stab, you also have melt. And melt color changes as you rotate the blade. I'll show it on here because I don't know how well it's going to show up. Try to show it here. I got to figure out a good way to video this that shows up as good as Fernando's wall. But there's melt, and the color changes as you twist the saber. Hopefully you can see the color change in the back of the chair there. So after melt, we have blaster blocks. You also have multi-blaster. See if I can get it to turn on. Where every time you swing the saber, you get a blaster. Turn multi-blaster off. All these are smooth swing fonts with accent swings. You also have clash. When your saber blade touches another blade or something else, you have clash. So let's retract the saber. Before we retract it, let's show color change. So let's go into color changing mode. And you change colors by rotating the hilt. When you find a color you like, we'll lock it in. It also has save states, so if you decide to change one of the colors from what I have on default files, then that color will be on every time you turn on your saber on that font. It will be that color. So if I change DSB to red, if I change DSB to a red blade, then when I retract the saber and I change fonts, when I come back to that font, back on ESB, ignites in red. but I don't want it in red. So I'm going to go back to ESB blue. And there we are back on ESB blue. So let's go to the next one. This is Loop Train by Kyberphonics. It's from A New Hope, and it's basically emulates the background of the Millennium Falcon as Luke is doing drone training. I'm going to put it in multi-blaster mode. The background track is from the Millennium Falcon. 4 sounds.
Good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living, it's something else. You made a pen. Screaming about it. Yeah, that's not wise.
Next font.
Graflex TFA HD.
Graflex TFA HD by Shameem. With smoothswings added. Next is Crossguard by KSith to a fire blade. Let's show you the lockup on this. Should be more pronounced on the red blade and the localized lockup. I'm sorry, that's the Force Lightning lockup and tip drag. Should be more pronounced on a red blade on the video. That's usually the way it works. Gesture retraction, which is awesome. Next preset. This is Rogue One Vader by KSith. The background music is from the movie Rogue One. You do this font, you're in the movie. KSith was ingenious how he designed this font, and others have followed in his footsteps. But now you can be Darth Vader in the movie as the rebels are getting ready. Put it in multi-blast and deflect all the blasters coming your way from the rebel scum. 4 sounds. Slashing a guy up on the roof. Then we were going to stab through the door. There we go. Hopefully y'all can see that on the back of that chair. If not, I'll put it up here. We're cutting through the door. The Tantive 4 launches. Darth Vader's like, dang it, I missed him. Retract the saber. Next preset. Luke Skywalker. This is Return of the Jedi from his hero saber. Background track is Jabba's barge. Push him in. Luke gets the lightsaber from R2. Ignites. He's slashing the bad guys. He's taking on Boba Fett. You're in the movie. KSith. Incredible stuff. Next preset, Senate Majority. This is by an open source user, the blade and the font. Watch that ignition again. This is an open source font. Force Lightning. Gesture retraction. Next preset.
If what you told me is true,
Bonus.
you will gain my trust.
This is Shameem's BMF. Caution to all those who are, averse to profanity. There's some profanity on this one, but this is Shameem's BMF with smooth swings added. Four sounds. Lock up. Retraction. It's a funny gimmick. If you hear Mace Windu's voice, just don't ignite the saber around children. That's kind of you know, adult kids, like people our age, you can show them, but don't show that to kids.
Hello there.
Next preset is your rainbow blade. The background track on this is going to be the cantina. There's your rainbow blade. Hopefully she shows up on video. Sometimes she does. Just a fun blade. It's a gimmick. Gesture retraction. Next preset. This is actually a Christmas blade, and it's got Chewie singing Silent Night with a candy cane blade. Let's see if that candy cane will show up on video here. Candy cane usually blows out the video, but you guys get the point. The cool part about this blade is it's candy cane, red and white stripes going up the blade. The crystal chamber is green, and the accent LEDs in the aft of the chassis are red. So it's a Christmas themed blade. Retraction. Next preset is your battery meter, which shows our battery is probably about 85% charged. As it's near the tip, it'll be green, and then it turns blue, and then it turns orange, and then yellow, and then red, and then it's time to recharge the saber. Of course, you'll also hear that it has voltage speak.
3.74 volts.
3.74 volts. So this saber, you know, is approaching the time when we need to recharge it. The background track on the battery blade is the theme from The Mandalorian. Every one of these presets has a background track. It's optional whether or not you want to play it, but you can play the background track while you're messing around with the saber. So this is a cool saber, this ESB lightsaber. There's currently a verbal agreement between me and one of my YouTube subscribers who wants to purchase this saber. If something falls through on that deal, then we'll post this as a for sale video, and it'll go up to first come, first served. This ESB Graflex is cool. So if y'all stay tuned for just a second, we'll get into a video to explain how to operate the clamp card buttons that this lightsaber is equipped with to get it to do all the functions you saw me demonstrate on the first preset. But this is a very cool saber, and you know, thank you all for watching to this point. And if you still want to see how this saber operates, stick around and watch the button operation instructions. And again, this for sale is verbally under contract. This lightsaber is verbally under contract, but we'll see how that goes once I send the invoices out. But at any rate, it's a cool saber. It's a cool blade. This is a 7/8 inch blade that I custom made for this saber. This thing is awesome. Let's see how the buttons work. You done with that, Risky? Come here, buddy. Come here and say hi to everybody. You don't want to be in the video? Risky don't want to be in the video, but he's always with me. Let's watch that button video. Welcome back from the demonstration video. Now what I wanted to show you is the button layout on the saber and how to utilize the buttons on the saber. So first of all, as I've stated before, both the red buttons on this ESB Graflex are faux. They're false. They're not actual buttons. They don't do anything. The button functions on this saber are all contained within the clamp card. The forwardmost button is your power button, and the rear button is your auxiliary button. In the invoice that I'm sending you, it contains all the instructions for the buttons in written form. So if you forget what they do, you have all the button instructions located in the invoice that I'll be sending. So first off, let's talk about the power button. Right now the saber is turned on, so the kill key is turned on. The saber is what we call in idle. That means the blade is not ignited, but it's standing by for some sort of signal from you. The first thing we're going to demonstrate on the power button is activation in mute. This is useful if your wife is in bed asleep, or your husband, if this a female buys this saber, and you don't want to bother them, but you want to play with your lightsaber. You can actually ignite this saber in mute by double tapping and holding power. Boom, boom. And the saber is indeed ignited, and there is no sound, so the saber has ignited in mute. To turn the saber off, you simply hold power until the blade goes off, and now we are standing by ready to ignite, and if you ignite it, it ignites in volume if you don't do the double tap and hold. Next is activating the lightsaber. To activate this lightsaber with the power buttons, we're going to talk about gesture, ignition, and retraction in a moment, but to activate this saber with the power button, a brief press on power ignites the saber in your current selected preset. To turn off the blade, you press the power button and wait till the blade is off. Now, each preset and each of the individual blade styles are called presets, and each preset has its own font. So each preset and each font has a music track that goes with it. On this first preset, which is ESB, I believe ESB end credits are the font. They are. How I got the music to play is a 2-second press on power while the saber is in idle. To turn the music off, it's a 2-second press in idle. 2-second press on power. So let's turn the music back on. 1, 2. We have music. And then while the music is playing on each of these fonts, you can then ignite the saber and swing it around while the music's going. You have all the functions on the saber, all the sound effects still work, and the music's going in the background. The music is optional on each preset. I'm going to retract the saber and then turn the music off. You can only start and stop the background track while the saber is in idle. So you cannot turn the music off if you ignite the saber. The blade has to be retracted before you can turn the music on or off. Next, force effects. Force effects only work when the saber is ignited, and how they work is a double tap of power when the saber is ignited. So I'm going to turn on the saber with a single push. Boom, we're ignited. Now what I'm going to do is double tap the power button to get a force sound. 1, 2.
Release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
Double tap.
I'll never join you. If you only knew the power of the dark side.
Double tap.
Now, release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
So that's how you get the force sounds, is a double tap on power. Each preset has force sounds. Next is, we'll talk about volume menu in a second. Next, let's say like you advanced past ESB to the next font. Oops, that was an accident. We cycled forward to Loop Training by Kyberphonics, but I want it back in ESB by Kyberphonics. So to go backwards through presets, you simply press and hold power until it changes back.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. You are not a Jedi yet.
Which I haven't shown you how to advance forward through the presets yet because that's an auxiliary button function. But I wanted you to know you can cycle backwards through the presets by pressing and holding power. The next one is color change mode. I demonstrated what color change looks like in the demonstration video, but in order to get to color changing mode, you first must ignite the saber, and then you press power and briefly touch aux. Once you do that, I'll show you the color of the blade changes as you spin the saber. Once you get to the color that you want, you press and hold power, and it then saves that color. When you retract the saber in whatever color you select, the saber remembers what color you selected. So if you don't like a color that I have changed the saber to, then you can put the saber in color changing mode and rotate the saber through the spectrum of colors, select the color that's more to your liking, and then lock in the color using power. The saber will forever remember until you wipe the SD card clean which color you last ran that preset in, and it will always run that preset in that color, even if you power off the saber. the saber remembers. The Proffie actually writes the color you selected to the SD card for that preset. Next is lightning block. Lightning block is new to Proffie OS 4.7, but it's been around for some time. But to get to lightning block, you ignite the saber, and then you double click and hold the power button. 1, 2. Oop. Ignite the saber again. 1, 2. Now you're going to have lightning block going in the saber blade. When you want lightning block to end, release the power button. And then last is melt. To get to melt, you have to stab the saber. So this is a stab, but you're going to stab while holding power down. That's going to be melt. And then you can change the color of the melt by rotating the saber. It's a responsive effect. So it reacts to what you're doing with the saber. When you want melt to stop, simply release power. So again, melt is caused by initiating a stab like this, but while you're holding power. Sometimes it's hard for me to hit it. There it goes. And rotating the saber changes the colors of the melt. Next, let's talk about the auxiliary function. So I'm going to turn the saber off by pressing power. Again, the saber was ignited, so to turn it off, I press and hold till it retracts. Press and hold power till it retracts. Let's talk about auxiliary functions. Number 1, blaster blocks. You have to ignite the saber, and then to get a blaster block, you briefly press auxiliary. That gives you blaster blocks. To get into multi-blast, which will deliver a blaster block every time you swing the saber, which I demonstrated in the video, you double tap auxiliary and hold it for about a half a second. 1, 2. Every time you swing the saber, you get a blast. To get out of multi-blast mode, it's simply a double tap, and now there's no blast playing. You're out of multi-blaster mode. The next auxiliary button function is when the saber is off, you can advance to your next preset by briefly touching auxiliary, which that gets you to your next preset. If I press it again, I'll go to the next preset.
Graflex TFA HD.
Next one.
Kylo Ren.
So this is Crossguard by KSith. I'm going to run it in this preset. The next auxiliary button function is lockup. To get lockup, first the saber has to be ignited. Then we're going to press and hold auxiliary, and you'll have localized lockup going in the saber blade until you release auxiliary. And remember, this is a press and hold. This isn't a quick press, this is a press and hold. If the saber blade is pointing down and you press and hold auxiliary, you'll get tip drag. That's how you get tip drag. You've got to point the saber down. And then we're going to turn the saber off. And the last bit is the volume menu, which I'm going to show you. Now this is complicated. This saber is programmed with OS 4.7 with SA2CC's button mods, and it does have an on-the-fly volume changeability. So if you want to turn the volume down or up, this is how you do it on the fly without reprogramming. Number 1, you have to press, when your saber's in idle and not activated, you're going to press auxiliary for 2 seconds. 1, 2. You'll hear a beep. We are now in the volume menu. The buttons will only turn the volume up and down until we leave this menu. And the thing is a lot of people get into this menu on accident and they're pressing buttons and they're like, it's not igniting the saber, it's not doing anything. Well, that's because you're in the volume menu. So once you're in the volume menu, power increases volume. Once you hear that beep, you're at maximum volume. Auxiliary decreases the volume, single presses. You'll actually hear the volume decreasing as I press that button. Now when you hear that different tone, you're at max low volume. If I ignite the saber now, I have to get out of the volume menu. 2-second press on aux. 1, 2. We're out of the volume menu. Now I'm going to ignite the saber and reduce volume. Now I'm going to retract the saber, and I'm going back into the volume menu. 2-second press on Aux. 1, 2. Back in the volume menu. Let's increase the volume of the saber to full volume. Once I hear that different tone, I'm at full volume. 2-second press on Aux to get out of this menu. So if you're ever pressing these buttons and you're hearing these beeps, the way to get out of it is a 2-second press on Aux. 1, 2. Now we're out of it. I can ignite the saber back in full volume. Retract the saber. Now the very last auxiliary function that I want to show you is voltage speak. This saber will actually tell you how many volts are remaining in its battery, and you get the voltage speak by pressing and holding auxiliary until you hear it. You're going to press auxiliary and hold it down until you hear voltage speak. When the saber is in idle, the blade's retracted. Hold it.
3.77 volts.
3.77 volts. And again, press and hold it until you hear the voltage.
3.77 volts.
That is the button operations on this saber. Now, the really cool part about this saber is it also has gesture ignition and gesture retraction. How you operate gesture ignition and retraction, for me, how I get gesture ignition to work the best is pull the saber backwards quickly. To use gestures to retract the saber, it's going to be a back and forth twist, but in a rapid fashion, back and forth. Now, ignition, retraction. Ignition, retraction. Ignition, retraction. Ignition, retraction. That's gesture, ignition, and retraction on the Proffie. This saber is programmed with state-of-the-art functionality as of 2020 in July. This saber is really awesome. I've done a lot of accuracy upgrades to this 2.5 kit. I'll be throwing in this TFA glass eye, which you can also turn this saber into a quasi-ESB saber. This is an awesome lightsaber. I'll email you the invoice for the interested party that is one of my YouTube subscribers and Facebook channel subscribers. If he decides that he does not want this saber, there's one other person that did. I will let that person have dibs on it if the initial interested party falls through on the deal. If both of those parties fall through on the deal, then this lightsaber will potentially be for sale. So I could change the title of this video for sale, and indeed, because of all the confusion, this lightsaber may end up on Facebook for sale. And so far, none of my lightsabers have survived my YouTube channel, but if it does, I will post it on my Facebook page as well as the saber groups for sale. This is an awesome lightsaber. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you, or the dark side, as it were.